Okay, so I wanted to ramble just a little bit about friction and removing friction from your practice, essentially, so that you'll practice more. And this is on my mind for some reasons I'll mention towards the end of this video. Um, Basically, the idea is you just want to make it easy for yourself to practice. Now, these are kind of, it gets a little more in the weeds and abstract, I guess, when it comes to piano practice, but for other instruments, it's a little more obvious. So, like, I have some trumpet work coming up in the future, unfortunately. And when I need to get ready for trumpet gigs, uh, I don't leave my horn in the case. You know, it's in the case in a closet at the moment. But as I'm getting towards that, I will put it on a stand and I will leave it out on a stand so that I don't have to get it out of a case. You know, I do the same thing with the guitar. Currently, I'm doing a lot of stuff with the guitar. So I have, I think my wife called it like a cage of guitars around me. I have set up in another practice space where I just have all of my different guitars that I need to use in practice kind of around me. I have all of the things that I need available right there. So I can just sit there and everything's in arm's reach and there's no friction to me just sitting down and starting practicing. I've got this Iwi over here that I can just grab. It's not put away. So most of my instruments are just out and they're ready to go. Even with my setup with my keyboard and the mixer and everything, most things are set up so they're easy to go. You know, in fact, the speaker I use basically as a monitor for this. It's annoying because I have to walk over to it and reach behind it and flick the switch, and it's a pain in the ass to get to. And so what did I do? I got a little I got a little remote thing. This is old. I've had this. I'm sure there are much better ones these days. But you know, basically, it's a little click button where I can turn the speaker on and off without having to get to it, and it's more or less within arm's reach. So that whenever I go to sit down at the keyboard, I can just turn on that speaker and not have to wander around turning all the devices. There's so many mixers and things. So I try to make it as easy to just start practicing as possible. It's a thing for me where it's not as much of a big deal because it's my job, so I kind of have to just make it happen anyway. I do try to minimize the friction, but it's maybe a little less difficult. But I think for a lot of casual people, for hobbyists, sometimes just whatever little thing makes it a little too difficult to like get started because something's going to take however many steps before they can actually get started practicing. Um, Now, when it comes to piano, for the most part, it's in the room or whatever. You know, if you have a keyboard, it's slightly different. Um, I will say one thing about that though is um, this is almost kind of friction adjacent, but having headphones, if you have any, if there's any hesitation to practice um, because you think people might overhear you or you might feel self-conscious about what you're practicing being either boring or repetitive or full of mistakes. Um, Headphones are fantastic. It's another reason that I actually really encourage people to use a keyboard for a lot of their practice. And I think, especially for beginner hobbyists, uh, a good digital instrument is better in most ways than an acoustic one. As much as like classical acoustic purists are really, really big on that, you really have a huge benefit from having a digital instrument and being able to just plug in and not annoy people and not cripple yourself. There are a lot of people who will practice um, not realizing that they're trying to play carefully or that they keep repeating things they're already good at because they don't want to annoy somebody with lots of mistakes. That leads to bad practice because you're psychologically worried. But that's only kind of adjacent to the friction thing. Other things can just be about, is your metronome easily accessible? You know, my metronome, I use a couple of different metronomes, but like my one physical metronome is just like right there. It's easy. It's always ready to go. I keep my music organized in lots of different binders. All of my organ stuff is in a binder, and it goes in my organ bag that I do have to take with me physically to the organ, which is annoying. I have a lot of my organ materials that aren't like week to week preparation things. I just leave them at the organ. My organ shoes are there. My metal brushes for brushing my shoes are there. I just leave it there. It's less things I have to think about. Music for piano all ends up, my work music ends up in a binder, and I keep it tabbed out for organization. I actually have several different binders for different work things to keep them separated, so I can kind of keep an idea of what's next in the pipeline. But tabs in my binder to help me just keep organized and keep things separate really helps make it easier to just practice and not worry about, oh, what do I need to copy. As soon as I get some music, new music, or in one case people are posting some stuff to a Google Doc that I get a list of things, then it's on me to print those. I'm not printing them one by one and then running through them. I just get all the logistical stuff out of the way. I print as much as I can and get it set up exactly the way I need to in a binder, so it's like, okay, now I can just sit down and practice, and focus on the practice part. Keep things like pencils around. And, over time I'll find all kinds of other things useful. These little tabs I sometimes will use to just mark things in books. I've got highlighters kind of available, pencils, all that stuff. So try to find the things that, I don't know, I guess you end up using as excuses to not practice, and just remove those barriers as many as you can. Take away anything that you find inhibits your willingness to sit down and practice, especially for hobbyists. But even for people in my position, making it less painful to practice, less grating, will help you get more practice done. People probably know that I'm not necessarily a fan of just more practice, quality over quantity. But if you're not even going to get any quantity, if you're going to negate the quantity because, there are too many barriers for you to get started, that's a problem. So just try to make it as easy on yourself. Find out whatever it is, just like when you're practicing and you're trying to figure out what are the things that are causing me grief here, what's slowing me down in my practice, whether it's technical or reading or whatever. Find the same things that just stop you from practice to begin with, so that you can always start and sit down and just go. So the reason that a lot of this is on my mind is because lately it has just been a bit of a whirlwind. I just got handed like 20 accompaniments the other day. And I've got a little over a month to get all these prepped. Actually, at this point, a little under a month for some of them. But yeah, I've got all these accompaniments that I have to prepare, and I have all these big events coming on in addition to the 2 weekly services that I have to prepare. And that's a lot of work that has kind of slowed me down video-wise. But then also there are some things I do during the week that require me to move the camera and to move my microphone. And those little things all by themselves, it creates friction in making the videos. So there are a lot of times I just want to sit down and make a video, and I just don't, because it's like, I've got to set up the cameras and all that stuff again. I definitely need to get it set up so that I can have a fixed camera set up here so that I can just sit down and go. Same idea, where I don't have to go through extra steps to sit down and make one. And then also there's the issue of scripting, because there are some of these things where, I guess with this friction video, I just decided I'm just going to sit down and ramble, and I'll figure it out in the edit. But then there are other things, I'm most of the way through a script about bottlenecks and sight reading and how to address those. But I tried to just kind of do that off the cuff, and I've tried to do it purely from bullet points. It's one of those things where like the details are so important that I don't want to leave things out. I left out in my practice video about how I practice, about how important those tempo ranges are. To one really important thing about them is tension. And I didn't mention that in there because it wasn't tightly scripted, and it probably should have been. But sometimes I just need to sit down and make something. So, I just wanted to throw this together. So, hopefully that's helpful to somebody.